If you want to give your chord playing on the piano a little bit more cosmic power, and who doesn't, try playing around with sus4 chords. That's G sus4. Let's imagine that we are in the key of C major, and we've got a really simple progression that goes from C to F to G and back to C, what we would call a 1-4-5-1 progression. Okay, that is it played in a very basic form, a little bit of you know, kind of comping around there. I could have used a G7 chord if I wanted to, drop the F in there. Okay, sounds nice and neat and tidy and kind of pretty and musical. But what if we use, instead of that regular G chord, what happens if we use a G sus4? Boom. Okay, can you hear the electricity there? It's like, whoa, you know, straight through the middle. It's really intense, and it takes us beautifully back to the C chord. It gets its intensity because we've got that, first of all, we've got the note that we're heading to, you know, the root note of the chord that we're heading to, C, there, right in the chord, but we've got that lovely discordance as well. It's really biting, okay? We can invert it, we can play around with it, we could play it in that position. Okay, I think it's never quite as powerful when it's inverted. If you're going to play your sus4 as a 5 chord, it always works best in root position. Okay, that's where it gets its real crunch. Other things you can do with it, say that instead of just substituting the plain old G chord, you want to substitute the G7 chord, you could keep that F in there. It's a nice rich sound, isn't it? Okay, and that's like, imagine we've broken it up, that's like we've gone up another fourth. Okay, so this is a chord built of intervals of a fourth, if you're familiar with that terminology. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're getting into the territory of what we would call quartal chords. Okay, that's a subject for another day. But we've got real power there. Lots of composers and songwriters understand the power of the sus4 chord. Really famous example, if you're familiar with Gustav Holst's The Planets Suite, which has been hugely influential on all kinds of movie composers, especially John Williams. In the movement Jupiter, you've got this lovely melody, which is also used as the hymn melody, I Vow to Thee My Country. Okay, and that carries on, do 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 da dun da 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 da, and then for the final chord, he does that. He lands on the sus4. I can't remember if it's in C. Can't remember what key it is, but that's the chord he uses. Boom. Okay, you don't need to say boom. You don't need to say boom when you play sus4 chord. I just find it helps. And you've got that incredible intensity at the end, and then he doesn't resolve it. So it's really worth playing around with. Just a little bit of a health warning. If you come across a 5 chord in a progression like G, we'll talk about other keys in a second, you need to use the sus4 chord when it's going to resolve back to the tonic chord, when you're in the key of C major and you're going to resolve back to C. Sometimes you get what are called deceptive cadences, where the 5 chord goes to a chord that isn't the tonic chord, typically A minor, like the 6 chord, or to F, the 4 chord, and then the sus doesn't work as effectively. Boom! And it feels like it's kind of like a beach ball that's had the bung taken out. Suddenly you've got that incredible power, incredible intensity, and a bit drippy, okay? So make sure that you're tending to use it when you've got a strong resolve back to the C, and don't overuse it. If you're songwriting, don't necessarily drop it in all the time, drop it in towards the end where it's going to have most intensity. Play around with it in other keys as well. Let's imagine we're in the key of F major, our regular 5 chord in F major is C, C7, C sus. Feel the electricity, feel the cosmic boom, and it resolves really nicely. If you find this kind of thing interesting, do please check out my Patreon over at patreon.com/BillHilton. There are free tiers, yeah, there are paid memberships there as well, but you can sign up to start with for free, and you actually get quite a lot of free stuff, articles and things, so do go and check that out, patreon.com/BillHilton. And yeah, brilliant. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you again soon.